Listen to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Level B1, Oxford Reading University. Part 2.
You will find Part 1 here.
She didn't speak the language, and I could benefit from that. Her name was Safi. Felix taught her every evening with a history book, and I studied together with her. From this book, I learned much about the ancient Romans, about Christ, about kings. I was now familiar with human manners. For a long time I could not understand how people could be so great, but equally so miserable and cruel. I also learned about the difference between the sexes and the birth of a new life. I learned that people create unions of love and respect money and property. All this made me look at myself. Who am I? I have no money, no property, no loved ones. In addition, I am ugly. After Safi's arrival, everyone became more cheerful. Now I felt brave enough to appear in front of them. I knew that the old man was blind and decided to talk to him first. When he was alone, I knocked on the door and went in. "Who are you?" he asked. "A stranger. Please let me warm myself by the fire," I said. "Come in," the old man replied. I sat next to him. "I am lonely and miserable," I said. "I have no relatives, but I am going to visit my friends now. I love them truly, and have been trying to serve them for many months, but they cannot see this because of my ugly appearance." "Have hope," he said. "There is kindness in the heart of a man." "I am grateful to you, my only friend," I responded. "What are their names?" the old man asked. I was silent. At that moment, Agatha, Safi, and Felix returned. "Now, my friend, protect me," I cried. "I was talking about you." When Agatha saw me, she lost her senses. Safi escaped in horror. Felix attacked me and beat me with a stick. I felt heartbroken and miserable and ran away. "Oh, why have you created me? I have seen only suffering in my life." Soon I decided to talk to the old man again.
Do you want more fascinating English stories with translations and transcriptions? You're going to love appewa.com. You can listen to English audiobooks and learn new words every day.
But it turned out that my friends had left the house in a hurry. Suddenly madness overtook me. I set the house on fire and watched it burn for a long time. I didn't know where to go, and I remembered you, my master. In the whole world, I only had you. So I went to Geneva on foot. When I was close to my destination, I saw a little boy in a forest. I thought, this man is too young to hate me. I decided to make friends with him. But when he saw me, he shouted, "You monster!" "I won't hurt you, boy," I said. "Leave, or I will tell my father, Mr. Frankenstein, and you will be punished," he cried. So that is the nature of all humans, I thought. They will hate me, whether I am kind or cruel to them. "Frankenstein," I shouted, "so you belong to my enemy. Be my first victim." I put my hands on his throat and pressed until he stopped breathing. I noticed something shiny on his chest. It was a picture of a beautiful woman. I took it. Then I came upon a small cottage. Inside I saw a sleeping girl. She was so gentle. But then I remembered the violent manners of all humans. If she had opened her eyes, she would have made me suffer. So pay for my crime, I thought, and put the picture next to her. Now to my suggestion. People will never love me, so I need a female monster as ugly as me. Create a friend for me, my master, and I will leave you alone. And if you refuse, I will pour the blood of your loved ones until you are destroyed. 6. The monster finished his story and looked hard into my face for a long while. I can't agree, I said. You are asking me to create one of your kind, so that you could destroy the world together. You are unfair, my master, he replied. But I am not angry. I will convince you. If you do as I ask, I promise, nobody will ever see me or my friend again. We will escape to the desert of South America. If you are so hungry for people's love, one day you will turn to them again, I continued, and they will punish you with their cruelty. I promise, master, I will disappear forever. Heavy thoughts about the destiny of this horrible, miserable monster filled my mind. Perhaps if people showed him kindness, he wouldn't be so cruel. I will do it, I said. But you must leave Europe forever. I will, he admitted. Now hurry and get to work. I will appear as soon as it is finished. And with these words he left. Painful weeks went by, and I couldn't convince myself to get to work. But I had to, for the safety of my family. I knew that some English scientists had made discoveries that could help me to create a female monster. So I decided to arrange a trip to London. One day my father asked me, "My dear Victor, are you still going to marry Elizabeth?" "Yes, father," I answered. "So why wait?" he asked. "I have some scientific work to complete in England." I pretended to be calm. On my return, I shall marry Elizabeth. I went to England with my friend Henry. It was late autumn when we reached London. After spending several months there, we went to Scotland. Though Henry tried to entertain me, my heart grew heavier every day. I decided to look for a quiet spot to perform my duty. One cold winter day, I left Henry with a friend of ours. I wanted to be alone. "Goodbye, dear Henry," I said. "I will return in a few months, and then I will be cheerful and healthy." We said goodbye, and I headed for the lonely island of Orkneys. It was the most suitable place. There were hardly any people. As soon as I arrived, I immediately set to work. My female monster was almost finished, and suddenly a terrible feeling overtook me. Was it wise to create another one? What if this female monster refused to leave humans? What if they wanted to give birth to children and create a race of their own kind? I was terrified. At that moment I looked out the window, and in the light of the moon I saw the terrible, familiar face. He smiled at me, an awful, cruel smile. In horror, I broke the unfinished work. I heard a wild shout of pain coming from outside. I waited, and he came after me. He asked why I had destroyed the other monster. He could hardly breathe. "Do you want to break your promise?" "Yes," I said, quite determined. "Go away." "Remember that I am powerful," the monster shouted. "You are my maker, but I am your master. I will make you suffer. I will be with you on your wedding night." I cried, and he ran out and quickly sailed away in a boat through the dark waves. "Oh, my dear Elizabeth, what have I done?" I thought. I packed up all my hated tools. I had to destroy the remains of my horrible work. I gathered its ugly parts, got into a boat, and sailed deep into the sea. I threw everything into the water and waited as it sank to the bottom. After that, I was so tired that I fell asleep. The wind had carried me far into the sea. I put all my efforts into directing my boat, and eventually reached an unfamiliar land. "Tell me, my friend, where am I?" I asked a local. "You won't like it here," the man answered. "Why are you so rude?" I wondered. "We don't treat criminals kindly in Ireland," the man told me. "You will see Mr. Kerwin soon." "Who is he?" I asked. "The judge. Talk to him about the recent murder of a man." 7. Many men were questioned in court, and they all confirmed I was guilty. They said that the body had been found not far from where I had landed. They also said that they had seen a boat like mine in the sea the day before. I didn't care about all that. Finally, Mr. Kerwin offered to take me to the hall where the body was kept. When I saw the body of a young, handsome man, I cried out. There were marks of large fingers on his neck. I held him close to me and cried, "My dear Henry, my friend, I have destroyed you too." I lost my senses. Then fever overtook me. When I woke up, I found myself in prison. I cried and cried. Why didn't I die like my friend? Soon my dear father came to support me, but I felt worse every day. No solid charges were brought against me in court, and I was released. I persuaded my father to return to Geneva at once. Now it was my responsibility to protect him and Elizabeth from the horror that hunted them from the dark. We passed town after town. I was responsible for William's death, and Justine's, and Henry's, I told my father. He tried to calm me down. "My son, don't talk madness. Father, all these innocent victims are the result of my crimes." But he didn't listen. In Paris, I received a letter from Elizabeth. The poor girl was miserable and in pain. She thought I no longer loved her. I suffered badly when I thought of marriage. I remembered the monster's words, "I will be with you on your wedding night." So be it, I thought. I will fight him, and one of us will fall. Either I release the world from this horror, or death will release me from pain. When I arrived, I held Elizabeth tight in my arms, and we both cried. "My darling, you have lost weight. Don't suffer any more. I love you, and we will be happy together," I said. As the wedding drew nearer, I grew more and more upset. I carried a gun with me everywhere, but I hid my fear deep inside, so I didn't bother my dear Elizabeth. Soon we got married. Right after the wedding, we went on a trip. Those were the last happy hours of my life. On our wedding night, we stayed in a small hotel. When we entered our room, I began to check every corner nervously. "What bothers you, Victor?" my wife asked. "Don't worry, Elizabeth. Go and rest. This night will pass, and all will be well." It was silly of me. I shouldn't have left her alone. Suddenly I heard a loud cry, and I knew at once. Elizabeth lay dead on our bed. I bent over my wife's body and held her in my arms and cried. In the open window, in the light of the moon, I saw the hated, ugly face with a violent smile. I tried to shoot him with my gun, but the monster escaped and jumped into a lake. I lost my strength. Why? Why did I not die? Scenes of my father and brother Ernest's death followed me. I ran out of the hotel, got into a boat, and headed for Geneva. I found my father still alive, but very ill. He couldn't bear the terrible news. He was heartbroken. A few days later, he died in my arms. I was left alone with my misfortune, my crime, my fear. My only intention now was to destroy the violent monster. Since then, I have been following him all over the world. Everywhere I hear his cruel laughter. And so I found myself near the North Pole, where I was picked up by Richard Walton's ship. 8. Walton's Letter. Here comes the end of this terrible story. I will tell it exactly as I have experienced it. For a whole week, Frankenstein had been telling me about his miserable life, and all the while there was ice around our ship. Finally, my sailors insisted that we go back to England, and I agreed. After a few days, the sea cleared, and the ship was able to turn around. By this time, Frankenstein had grown quite weak. Before he died in a fever, he couldn't stop thinking that his worst enemy was still alive. Several hours later, when I entered the room where Frankenstein lay dead, I saw the monster. He was crying over his maker. Then he told me of his pain. My maker hated me for killing the innocent and destroying life, but his hate was nothing compared to how I hate myself. I know what I must do. I will go away and set myself on fire. I will burn myself and release the world from my own horror forever. Saying this, the monster jumped out of the window onto the ice and disappeared in the dark.
Did you subscribe to our channel? Stay tuned to get more audiobooks like this. And now, enjoy another English story.